This episode of Strange Fake was phenomenal. We finally got the introduction to a brand new servant, Armpit Saber. So now we technically have two Sabers in this Grail War, and I'm honestly torn. Guitar Saber, who plays the same guitar that I have, by the way, a Les Paul, or Armpit Saber, which is awakening the inner something inside of me and my therapist's phone. I don't know what to do. I'm confused, and I may be into dudes and armpits? We pick up with Faldius, who turns over a card revealing the text, "I ask you, art thou my master?" You know, just the classic Fate line everybody watches this series for. While this is happening, Castor is informing Orlando on Faldius's background. Most importantly, that someone from Faldius's family actually participated in the Third Holy Grail War. In turn, the Dio-lands were able to form an alliance with the government, which led to them recreating the Holy Grail War in the United States. And for a while, it went on the shelf, but when they cultured a piece of the Grail from the Fuyuki Grail, even though the piece they used was in reality fake, and thus the war itself and its connection to the real thing is at best weak, this is where things get crazy. And sexalicious? They used the original 6 servants as a primer to summon 7 more servants, and their time limit is not 14 days, but 7. As this happens, the lights go out on Faldius as his servant appears behind him in the form of a skull. He basically warns Faldius that as long as he has conviction for this war, then he will serve him. At least that's what I got from what he said, which lets things sink in for Faldius as his nerves are frayed. Clearly, you see, this is why I actually love Fate, and why I think this series captures the spirit so perfectly, and in some ways, I'm starting to think even better than the originals to a certain capacity. Yeah. That's how good this opening scene was. It was excitement exemplified. It's fascinating to me that there will be 13 servants in total fighting in this Grail War that is basically a cheap copy in America, which is kind of the king of cheap Chinese dollar store slop and 2-bit con artists, so fits. It's perfect. It actually kind of hurts. All the setup, though, is interesting. It makes you think, it makes you excited to see who will be summoned next and the effects on the war by having so much chaos. And what would the winner actually get at the end of a fake Grail War anyways? Not to mention, I think every servant thus far has been nothing short but either perfect fits for this series or absolutely some of the best servants we have ever seen in Fate. You know, like Gilgamesh, for example, period. But I digress. Let's continue to follow along together. We see that Orlando is having to deal with the goth Lolita Francesca with her cream and coffee-infused brain. She maddeningly states that she could have never predicted a dead apostle becoming a master. By the way, the English dub voice for Francesca kind of makes me want to shoot myself, but at the same time, it's pretty good. Now, I actually enjoyed the back and forth of this scene, which I typically don't with characters like Francesca, because Orlando outright insults her and calls her a hag. And that was the starter pistol firing off for our proper introduction to Fran, Francesca, who I'll call Fran from now on. She is absolutely insane, but through this reveals key details. This is not her original body, and is just one that she has taken over, which leads into a scene that is insanely uncomfortable, but kind of horrifying. So much so that you can't help but really look. She opens up her stomach to reveal basically a mouth as her entire midsection is gone. And as Orlando talks to her, clearly not moved at all by this grotesque nastiness, we get this camera angle that both made me laugh and impressed me. It is kind of... It was very creative to view this from her stomach's weird mouth thing. It shows that this one is not to be messed with and is chaotic. And I, for one, dislike chaotic characters who are goth Lolitas. You know, honestly, I don't know what I was thinking when I typed that sentence. Even taunting Orlando when she reminds him that he is the one who set this city as the stage for the Grail War. Fran is just... Overall, I think her character is very weird, but the more and more I see Orlando, I respect his drive and cool head even more. Either way, pretty brilliant and creative way to introduce Fran and further show that her chaos can be just as effective as Orlando's control. Two polar opposites, the meeting of the minds. I think that's what this one was all about. After this, we see the servant from the end of the last episode, an archer class that fires a shot at Orlando and Fran as they converse. She tells Orlando that all of the real servants in this fake war have already signed to the States, meaning they have full control over what happens with them. But there was something bugging Fran, the Executor and the Dead Apostle, Hansa and Jester, because, like was stated in the last episode, a battle between Master and Executor, or Executor, I'm messing up, guys, is simply not in the rules and means impartiality. And so the attack from Archer arrives both at the windows of Orlando and Tine, and yes, we'll talk about her later, as Fran goes ultra chaotic, crazy goth Lolita mode. And just so you know, I don't need 100,000 comments about my mispronouncing of Tine. I just need one. Just one. Otherwise, it is quite rude, and it is not that hard to look for a comment that is correcting me and thumbsing that up instead of, just wasting your time and typing the same thing over and over. It doesn't help anyone. So please be a little bit smarter, more considerate of that in the future. If I do make a mistake, don't worry, I will see it, I promise you. So Gilgamesh is able to negate the attack for the reason of him setting up an auto defender for Enkidu, or you could say Enkidon't. Yeah, that was a good one. Pranks and jests. The response from Lolita and Orlando is straightforward, setting up the mechanic of keeping a servant's identity hidden for tactical advantage. And as Orlando explains, they are still policemen and must uphold their duty to themselves. That's a bit of a cheeky joke there. Fran reveals that this Grail War has not summoned a god, but has summoned, of all things, a demigod. One that carries a particular hatred for the gods, in fact. And due to that, when summoned into this war, his very nature was changed into that of the Avenger class. Disrespected, Gil's temper flares as he opens his gates and fires off a couple phantasms, which are all blocked, leading to the mysterious demigod to simply gesture with his hand to come and get some. Now that right there was what we call badass. So he does so, it goes and gets some, and fully opens the gates of Babylon, aiming to do what he did to Castor to Avenger. But in a twist, Gil's attack fails and he is called weak for his efforts, something I do not think I have ever seen once. I mean, it was funny. I was actually watching this episode when it first came out, and my server was like, nah, no way he survives that. I mean, that's Gilgamesh, and nobody expected this to happen for him to survive without a scratch. Not even me. So once again, this is tapping into the excitement of fate. This series is a far cry from the awful Camelot and Grand Slop stuff we've seen over the years. This is way better, my friends. Much, much higher quality. Avenger then tells Gil to draw his best blade to stand a chance, and he doesn't. Instead, he once again says he is much too weak to make him draw Aya. Instead, he draws one of his best blades, and one you may have missed if you weren't paying attention. Caliburn, aka Arturia Pendragon's weapon of choice. Avenger is disappointed by his choice of weapon as Enkidu senses their boyfriend fighting another servant, but in the most biggest of all largest of surprises yet, Enkidu doesn't sense Avenger. Oh, no. They sense someone else. Someone who is familiar and also fresh. A new Saber face. On a black steed, she hits Avenger with a fist that sends him across the fucking map, to the point that I'm pretty sure he had to load in the source engine because he went into... I'm just making a nerd joke there. First impressions on the new Saber, though? Well, look at that beautiful character design. The red hair, the robes, the horse, the fist, and the commanding, booming, confident voice. Yeah, that's my favorite type of woman indeed. Yes, sir, it is. Nothing better than a woman laying waste to demigods because she's so angry. She could do it. I am on my hands and knees, not barking, but proposing. We then see Saber proper riffing on a Les Paul guitar, somehow able to ring out a chord with armor on. I don't know how that one works, but he's just like me for real. Once he hears the ripping roar of a distorted Les Paul, he is awestruck, and Ayaka observes plainly, because that's what Ayaka does. She does everything plainly. She's like waffles without any syrup. It's kind of funny. The Mohawk Man does the classic "your boyfriend" trope, And Ayaka responds appropriately, not my boyfriend, and explains that she doesn't know him all that well while he twirls for her, showing off his new rocker style with a rad leather jacket. Obviously, this looked killer on him, and I so wish that were me for real. Saber and his new band provide the soundtrack to the next badass scene. Avenger emerges to attack Gil, but it is blocked as the new redhead attacks Avenger and summons her steed, Callion. You know, I am often surprised at how modern anime really loves their armpits. I don't know what this says about anything. Maybe it says something about me. I just think it's hilarious. She rides outrunning Avenger's attacks and using the debris to parkour with her horse to gain the high ground against Avenger. The name of the hero is revealed to be that of, well, the nickname of the hero is revealed to be the Queen of Betrayal. As we know, her name's revealed later. Let's just keep. I don't know how to do videos anymore, apparently. But even after she attacks him, he stands untouched, much to the surprise of Tine and Gil. The latter explains that this armor is made from the hide of a demonic and/or divine beast, which means for the other servants, the human tools or weapons will not work against it, as it is literally god armor. The Queen of Betrayal expresses her surprise in her father's war belt not being used, to which Avenger explains that such a power from a god is not to be worn or used. For him, it is something to be used by force, to be trampled upon and forced into submission and controlled by humans. But Gil attacks despite the Queen of Betrayal's commands to not, which, as we know, does not fly with Gil, who does basically whatever, whenever. We kick things up a notch, and especially the animation of this episode, chef's kiss, because the queen throws a spear directly at Gil, which smashes through multiple phantasms, destroying them. But as the battle comes to a respite, Gil tells her that he is trying to help her as she is no match for her Avenger. But hey, I wasn't expecting this. She says that she knows very well because she was killed by this man. Starting to come together yet? Who this is? But she then turns her attention back to Avenger, who calls him out for attacking Tine, who she sees as a defenseless child. I don't know what the hell is happening with this week's script and why I keep mispronouncing everything. I'm keeping it in because I was late for this video by a week. So I'm gonna go back to the video now. Even going as far to say that even she did not expect him to do something so tasteless or low. Before it is revealed the Avenger's true name, he yells out that he is nothing more than a man seeking vengeance against the gods. While this is happening, Fran informs Orlando that her servant is en route to run interference. Realizing that Heracles is not the same man she once knew, but her name's Heracles. His name's Heracles, by the way. She vows to return him to the proper path, and so they prepare for the ultimate showdown, and as promised, they are all teleported by Fran's servant, who seems to be a disembodied female voice. In reality, it is just an illusion, as Gil points out, and when they use the visage of Enkidu, Gil has had enough of the illusion weaver, but the Queen of Betrayal's master actually ends up calling her back as she makes her announcement to leave heard by all, and my god, can she command. And through that, we learn the Avenger calls himself Alcides? The queen's identity is Hippolyta, the child of Otrera and Ares, the god of war. She is known as the commander of the Amazons, so it's a little bit of a history lesson there, I guess. Back at the bar with Ayaka and Saber, she asks him what reason he is fighting for, but get this, he doesn't know why. Can't even come up with a reason, despite having regrets in his life just as everyone else does. Even then, he can't find one singular reason as to why he was summoned. My guess is this has to do with the fake Grail pulling in servants who likely just wouldn't be summoned otherwise. Like right now, that's my theory on the matter. I'm almost 50-50 on whether this is just him not remembering because there is nothing or because there is actually something locked away, like a hidden memory. I think it probably has a great chance maybe of being the latter, but I also just don't know either because of the circumstances of this war in particular. Well, Saber gives Ayaka a vision of a man with long flowing hair covered in bandages. This is Pierre Basile, the man who had killed Saber, and this is immediately clear who this is by this point, but he also informs Ayaka he has 2 noble phantasms which he considers aces up his sleeve. One of them is that he can summon anyone he chooses as long as they agree to it. As he goes to tell her of the second phantasm, Ayaka interrupts him to remind him of what he is doing. It will reveal his identity, though this is the plan, as he reveals himself to be the Duke of Normandy and King of England, Richard III, Lionheart, the man killed by Pierre Bazille on March 25th, 1199, via a crossbow at the seas of Chalice Chabrol, I think is how you pronounce that, which would then result in some gangrene, as probably many deaths were back then. And he died on April 6th the following month. But before we continue, support the channel by picking up some gamer subs at a 10% discount with code CTactics. Currently, they're running a Code Vein 2 promo, which I recommend everyone check out because I know I'm checking it out. Every purchase helps support this channel directly and would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So yeah, this episode overall was very much just a lot of kick-assery. I did a bit of research on Hippolyta. She dead, and wow, she was stripped of her belt by Heracles. At least that's the version of the story Strange Fake is using here. There's many other. So it's no wonder that she wants revenge, and it is basically, this is a what-if story of what would happen if they met again and continued where they had left off. I think for her character, I really like the Saber inspiration. I was told by my editor, David, super duper big Fate fan by the way, that in the book she looks different, but for her anime version, they Saberified her. Which I don't mind at all, because from the looks of it thus far, she really does have a Saber-like demeanor in the way she carries herself. Very knightly, very focused, very fierce. I also love the fire in her spirit too. It was quite good at setting her up in particular, methinks. Though for Richard the First, I loved that too. I do often wonder if Ayaka and he will have a romance subplot. I think I mentioned this in episode 1 or 2. I don't think they will, just because Ayaka thus far is as plain as they come. But what I do think will continue to happen is those teases throughout, because I don't know, I just like the dynamic of Richard the First trying to bring Ayaka out of her shell. That's what makes this dynamic compelling to me. Richard is who makes Ayaka work, and Ayaka is what makes Richard work. And I love how they mirror each other, as through Ayaka, he is able to experience modern music, as an example, in the form of a traditional 4-piece bar band, and to have, this brief chance at living again to see the fruits of his actions already long coming past to bear. And Richard is bringing her along to open her up. Heracles is also rather unique in that he wants to take down Gil, but he's dealing with the need to take vengeance against the gods. All the while, Hippolyta is looking for her own vengeance. No idea where she is going, but I do want to see her master. I think there is a decent chance that hers is probably a more, neutral-leaning figure at least. I can't imagine a gal with that haircut and that amount of armpit and that amount of saber face as evil, but then again, Yubel the mage does exist. As well, I need to see it. I was just shown the image of Tina in her traditional Native American clothes, and yes, I'm just hard-cutting to this because it's so good. I need to see it. I need to see the headdress. I need it. I need it. The dress is nice and all. She looks like very Fate Stay Night with it, if that makes sense, but as an American, I just want to see how a Japanese anime portrays indigenous Americans. So far, Tina is a character I don't know much about, but I do know I like her a lot. I think that has to do with her naivete and inexperience, and how Gil bounces off of her quite well. She's a blank slate. He gives her a fair amount of respect, and to me it's weird what I'm about to say, I know, but if Gilgamesh is written to, like a character, then that character, to me, is worthy. Think back to Ryder in Fate Zero. Easily one of the best pairings in terms of an on-screen chemistry I've ever seen in an anime. And heck, throw in Waver 2, of course. Can't forget about the GOAT of all time. Otherwise, not much else to say than I just think this anime is not only meeting expectations, but exceeding them and now blowing them out of the water. But will it be a home run? Will it go all the way? We'll just have to wait and see for that, won't we? Because the new episode, by the way, my new video for episode 5 is out, so go check it. Join my Discord, fellow Fate weebs. Here is even more of my Fate content for you to check out. Join my Discord. Make it a great day or not, join my Discord.